Welcome back to the Paddock. My name is Evan, and we are going to be going over all of the São Paulo 2025 race weekend notes that I took, so you don't have to watch it if you didn't watch it, but if you didn't, I would heavily recommend you watch this week. So to start with the preamble, Colapinto got his contract extended into 2026, which is a bit confusing, but I guess nobody else wanted to drive for Briatore because everyone kind of thinks that Alpine is currently a pressure cooker and is making the situation at Red Bull look good, which is heavy work. As well as, obviously, Gabriel Bortoleto was running a special themed helmet livery for Brazil, as he is Brazilian. As well, so did Lewis Hamilton, who is an honorary Brazilian citizen, which was brought up multiple times, albeit it could also be argued that it was somewhat a Senna tribute helmet. I was actually surprised how many people did a Senna-themed tribute helmet. There were 15. I didn't write down who all did it, but to find out who it was, Google Senna 15. So for FP1, they use the C4, the C3, and the C2 tires. I wrote probably no dry tires will be used. I was severely wrong and severely disappointed. There was a dry track, but there were a few minutes of delay. They didn't really explain that, but there will be a delay later that will be explained. Also, PK Jr. had a kid, other than spinning into the barrier. Now I know he has a child. Yay! Tsunoda went off and hit the wall at Descida del Lago after only having 4 laps of experience on the track this year. That really does wonders for him and his potentiality of getting a seat next year because it could royally wreck his race. We'll see that in a minute. Behrman and Hamilton holding up Antonelli on 2 different sides. It was described as kind of almost a virtual chicane because he had to weave around both of them. That was a bit unfortunate for his flying lap. Norris having brake issues and missed valuable time, not a ton, but he did miss some valuable time. Villeneuve is apparently on F1 TV. Glory to Sky Sports. I love Sky Sports. Verstappen gets on the curb a bit at Descida del Lago, but just runs wide and doesn't bonk the wall like Tsunoda did. Tsunoda was back on the track with 25 minutes remaining. Verstappen was under investigation with a small, squabble with Russell, but nothing really ever came to that. It's FP1. You need to do something pretty drastic to get a penalty during a free practice session, like red flag infringements. Why do we always get a Hamilton bulge cam whenever he gets into the car? I swear, people joke about the camera direction and the camera crew having a thing for wags, but whenever Hamilton gets in the car, it's just like, hey, would you like a zoom in on his crotch so you can see everything going on in there? I guarantee you that is not what I want to see. Please do not show me that again. It is creepy. I liked that we also eventually moved on to something else. A nice discussion of guidelines and some of the rules of the ahead of the apex. Is that the best way to do racing? One thing, a lot of people seem to think that Sky was criticizing Verstappen with the fact that he does tend to play with the lines of what you can and cannot get away with the ahead of the apex rules, but I think it was actually more said in Reverie, in a look at what he did to test out and find out where the rules are so he can kind of play with the rules and do it to the T where he doesn't get punished for it, but just almost goes over the line. Lawson, when he was coming out of the pits, held up Tsunoda, but nothing ever came of that yet again. Nothing ever comes of incidents that happened in free practice 1, but it's interesting to note because sometimes this can bring up things during the actual race. And I said, it's only FP1, but 2 minutes remaining, and Ferraris are at 18th and 19th, and Max is P17. I was thinking to myself, could this be spelling doom? Could it be? Did it be? Somewhat. Brief yellow flag for Hamilton at Jinsao. He obviously had an incident, but it wasn't really big. He was able to correct it. And the top 4 fastest were Norris, Piastri, Hülkenberg, Alonso, and the slowest was Tsunoda. For the sprint qualifying, I said, weather incoming tomorrow? No. No, it is not. Behrman looking speedy into P4 with 1 minute remaining. I noted Behrman a lot because I always believed in Behrman, and I still do believe in Behrman. I do think we could see him in Ferrari in a few years. Alonso goes 3rd fastest. I predicted, obviously there's the redbull.com website, and I like to do the little predictor. I'm not always the best at it. Sometimes I can have great ideas, and then just chaos takes over. But I predicted him to be P16. He was P18. It's soon over. I'm sorry. It is. Eliminated, Colapinto, Lawson, Tsunoda, Ocon, and Sainz. In SQ2, Norris was P2 behind Alonso with 5 minutes remaining. Fernando is faster than you. Can you confirm you understand this message? I didn't think I'd actually get to make that joke in 2025, but I'm happy. Fernando was doing good. Was yellow flag at Bico de Pato for Leclerc. He locked up and spun. Hamilton was noted for yellow flag infringement, but got away with a reprimand because there was a yellow flag for Leclerc, and he didn't really slow down, but he did see it and kind of hesitated on the throttle, so he just got off with a reprimand. It could have been a 5-place grid penalty, but I'm glad that they didn't reprimand him for it. It really wasn't something severe. Eliminated, also, he was eliminated. So, eliminated were Hamilton, Albon, Gasly, Bortoleto, and Behrman. In SQ3, only 1 lap was done for both Aston Martins, Hadjar, and Verstappen. Norris was on provisional pole, and it was a 5-7 for Aston Martin. Like I mentioned, I'm an Aston Martin fan. Sue me. Norris, Antonelli, Piastri, Russell, and Alonso were the top 5, and 6th through 10th was Verstappen, Stroll, Leclerc, Hadjar, and Hülkenberg. Sainz and Tsunoda did do setup changes, so they started from the pit lane. Slightly damp track, but no wet tires and no rain. Merck, Verstappen, Leclerc, Albon, and Hadjar started on the softs. Everyone else was on the mediums. It was a pretty decent start from Hamilton. A brief yellow because Lawson collects Behrman and spins him round at Descida del Lago, specifically the turn 4 part of it. Antonelli pointed out that Norris had brought some water on from the curb because he attacked the curve quite heavily, and with the way that the serrated curves worked, they collected a lot of water from the rain previously that morning and brought it onto the track. So Antonelli didn't attack it as much, but Piastri didn't see that and ended up going onto it, and he spun out at the barrier at Curva de Sol. One thing I did see, I'm not going to criticize Piastri. I like Piastri. I think he's a great driver, but from his onboard, you could see a tiny bit of the splash from Norris up ahead, as well as you could see that Antonelli wasn't attacking the curbs as much as kind of normal in these conditions, so he could have somewhat estimated that maybe it was a bad idea to go on the curbs. Maybe Antonelli saw something if he didn't even see the Norris incident, but I don't really blame him. And then, almost immediately after, as everyone comes through, Hülkenberg and Colapinto had the exact same moment and spin out and crash into the barrier in very nearly the same spot at Curva de Sol. So safety car, which turns into a red flag. During the red flag, as they're making their way around to, obviously, the pit lane to stop, Verstappen was complaining with GP about how undrivable the car was, how bad the car was. I don't really blame him. It kind of was. One thing that I noted that I was kind of surprised at while they were taking Colapinto's car or Piastri's car was one of the marshals was in a sling. I didn't know you could volunteer to be a marshal in a sling, but hey, it's cool. Colapinto and Piastri were out, but they did bring Hülkenberg back and try to fix it. They did. They replaced his rear wing. I was impressed that they were able to do that in the somewhat short red flag. While they were at the red flag, we went to the sky pad. Well, I wouldn't bring it up really necessarily. It was just pointing out what we already saw from the whole Norris incident. Karun Chanak was the one using the little board, and I thought it was so funny because it was live TV, it switched to him, but he had like a 3-second millennial pause where you're staring at him, waiting for him to start, and he's just like, you're just like, oh, come on, honey, come on, say something. And he had like the most like focused eyes on the camera, but hadn't realized he's on camera. Sometimes I don't realize I'm on camera and I say regrettable things, but that's totally different because I cut it out. Sometimes. I kept in the Rule 34 joke. Now, after the restart, Norris, Aston Martin, Gasly, and Albon are now the ones on the softs. Everyone else is on the mediums. Not everybody changed their tires, though. Some people put on new mediums, other people just elected not to do anything. So that led to a lot of interesting tire strategy. Verstappen almost goes into the back of what I believe was Alonso. The reason I say that is normally my notes are very accurate. This time I wrote, Verstappen almost goes into the back of Verstappen. I don't think that can happen. Jos isn't on the grid and there's no other Verstappens, so unless he found a way to separate his car and ram it into the back of itself, I think it was probably Alonso. Because Alonso and Verstappen did end up going wheel to wheel, Albon sprays water on the curb. I wrote that mostly in case something happened, where we had another 3-car crash, but thankfully nothing happened. Alonso told to Lyco. Lifting and coasting is something that he's probably familiar with, considering he's driven a Ferrari. Gasly was complaining of Leclerc not getting past Alonso 3 places ahead of him. Well, I get that, because it was slowly starting to back everyone up and make it harder for him to overtake, getting stuck in a DRS train. It was quite humorous to hear. Antonelli was getting closer to Norris, and then this bit. So, Bortoleto was trying to pass Albon. He still had his DRS flap open, because one thing, you can manually, turn off the DRS, but it automatically disconnects when you press the brake. He was entering into the brake at turn 1 at the Senna S's, but obviously he hadn't. He was still on the throttle. He goes around to overtake, and he loses control of the car, spins into one wall and into a second wall. As he's going towards the second wall, he goes airborne during the crash, and part of the Sauber gets underneath Albon's car. Doesn't take out Albon, but it's a terrifying crash. The first hit was 39G, and the second hit was 50G, and his steering wheel column broke. I know that it's modern Formula 1, and nowadays you can just pretty much total the car and you're fine, but it was one of those moments where I held my breath because it was just so terrifying to witness. Plus, with the whole steering column broke, I know I already made the whole haha Senna 15 joke earlier, but seeing a Brazilian break a steering column just makes me think of Senna and Senna's death, and that's the last thing you want to be thinking about when you witness a crash, is maybe they died, because it doesn't matter if it's your favorite driver or if you have a least favorite driver or your least favorite driver, you should not want to see somebody get severely hurt or injured. That being said, thanks to the safety of modern Formula 1, he hopped out of the car and was completely fine. He walked into the garage. He would have been ready to do the qualifying if his car had been ready. That's amazing. As well as for the earlier incident, Lawson and Behrman were given 5-second penalties and 1-point penalty after the race. The finishing places were Norris, Antonelli, Russell, Leclerc, Alonso, Hamilton, Gasly, Stroll, Hadjar, Ocon, Behrman, Lawson, Tsunoda, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Albon, Bortoleto, Piastri, and Colapinto. Qualifying. So in Q1 there was a delay to fix tires for a crash at Curva de Sol. That happened during the Porsche Super Cup. Prince Albert was in the Ferrari garage, and to save you a Google, because I had to Google it, no, that is not the Prince Albert. He's the Monegasque one, not the one that the dick piercing is named after. I don't know why, but I was like, I wonder if that's the one that the Prince Albert piercing is from. He may have one, but that's not why it's called that. It's after an English guy from the 19th century. Don't worry. Y'all spotted. I do that. I play a little game where if it's just a random person in the garage who's famous, not like a celebrity, but motorsports famous, I try and ID them, and the only way you can win is if you see Yoss. Don't ask me why. Well, it's because he's one of my favorite drivers from the 90s. I don't know why. He got 2 podiums in his rookie career. I kind of have to have a little bit of hey, he's pretty cool. Piastri locked up into turn 1 on his first flying lap. Is it Piastri over? Probably not. Behrman still fastest with 5 minutes remaining. Verstappen might be knocked out in Q1. I wrote that, but I didn't fully believe that. Also, if you were around for the last video, you would have seen I mentioned that I didn't see the Red Bull's McDonald's logo. It took me until Q1 to notice it, because I was too focused on where the cars actually were going and how they were behaving. But hey, I found the McDonald's logo! Now they're not gonna have it anymore! Yay! Both Red Bulls out. Bortoleto's car gets fixed as the checkered flag gets pulled. While you could say it is sad that he doesn't get to do any qualifying, it's still impressive that they were able to fix the car between the sprint and qualifying, which was only a matter of a few hours. Eliminated Verstappen, Ocon, Colapinto, Tsunoda, and Bortoleto. Q2, Behrman was absolutely flying. Leclerc went wide at the exit of Descida del Lago and wobbles. That was mostly just this looks like it's a bad lap. Maybe he's cursed and getting out in Q2. He didn't, but who knows. I wasn't expecting Q1 to go the way that it did. Russell was complaining of lack of grip, but did well, and no further investigation for Russell impeding Hamilton. There wasn't really anything about that until there was no further investigation, so it was nothing. Alonso, Albon, Hamilton, Stroll, and Sainz were eliminated in Q2. In Q3, Piastri was given a provisional pole, and this was the funniest bit. So about 7 minutes remaining, both Mercs were 4 and 5, and they cut to Toto Wolff. Toto Wolff looks angry and he shouts something which I assume was some variant of English or German profanity, but he does not look happy for his cars being 4th and 5th. Considering, I think it's pretty good. I don't know what he was mad about, but he was mad. Leclerc gets on provisional pole and it immediately gets replaced by Norris, and then Antonelli in P2. Seriously, what is with the rookies this year being this good? Also, I think it might be the whole banned or not banned theory. You can look into that. I'm not fully... I don't know why people have created that, but it seems to fit. The top five fastest were Norris, Antonelli, Leclerc, Piastri, and Hadjar, and then 6th through 10th were Russell, Lawson, Behrman, Gasly, and Hülkenberg. The Grand Prix. Ocon and Verstappen to start from the pit lane. I never thought I would get to say that. Never thought I would have to say that is probably more apt. Hamilton down to 18th due to damage with Sainz. Sainz was investigated for that, but no further investigation was necessary. Hamilton makes contact with the rear of Colapinto, which is yet again something I never thought I would have to say. I never thought there would be a day where Colapinto would genuinely be ahead of Hamilton on the track in any capacity, but Hamilton was given a 5-second penalty because he did still hit the back of Colapinto. Alonso goes wide at Ferradura. Nothing really happened to that. I was mostly just antsy because so much had already gone on. Yellow flag. So, Bortoleto got into contact with Stroll and was in the wall at Bico de Pato. So he's in the wall. And it hurts. He's in the wall for the second time. He's had 2 races that are his home race. He's had the sprint and now he has the Grand Prix. And both times he's ended up in the wall. I feel like life just hates Brazilians because the last time a Brazilian was in a Brazilian Grand Prix was 2008, which Felipe Massa lost the world championship, and then the safety car gets brought out, and Bortoleto has a broken steering column again, because I feel like it just has to happen again. I'm glad he didn't get hurt from that. It can be a serious thing, because that is ultimately, in my opinion, what killed Senna. Killed, not made him die. He was murdered. Hamilton pits for a new front wing, but has damage on lap 6. I noted that he still had damage because it was very clear to see that he was quite heavily damaged and there was no way he was either completing the race or getting into the points. He also already looks pissed. Yellow flag as Piastri and Antonelli made contact, which forced Antonelli into Leclerc. Basically what happened was, due to the ahead of the apex rules, Antonelli goes for the corner, but Piastri can't back out in time because he just didn't think to react, and he bumps into Antonelli, which sends him into Leclerc. Leclerc has major damage. His wheel popped off and has suspension damage. Usually when the wheel pops up, that is due to suspension damage because the whole thing gets kind of crumpled, and he's parked at Descida del Lago, and a virtual safety car was called. Verstappen was up to P13, but pits due to a front right puncture, mostly due to all the calamity and all the debris. It makes sense that you would pick up a puncture from that. Usually at least one person does. Antonelli seems fine. The car, at least. I don't know how the man is doing, but the car is fine. The only 2 people I can say probably aren't fine, well actually 3, would be the 2 Ferrari drivers and Bortoleto. But Antonelli's car seemed fine. Tsunoda and Stroll had an incident. We didn't see that one originally. And Tsunoda was slapped with a 10-second time penalty, which initially seemed a bit harsh until the replay. He hit Stroll and spun Stroll around. Basically, he just hit Stroll, and there was nothing Lance Stroll could do except spin. There was no way to avoid it. It makes sense he was given a 10-second time penalty. I would have given him a 10-second time penalty. Piastri was noted for the earlier collision with Antonelli and Leclerc, and was also given a 10-second time penalty. Hamilton pits again on lap 15, which if you notice, I mentioned he pitted on lap 6, but he pitted on lap 15 for mediums, and the tires looked like they were dying on like 10 laps later on lap 25, which is a sign that something is up because usually mediums last longer than 10 laps, considering that at some point, I didn't see this personally, but Hülkenberg lasted for 39 laps on the soft tires. Tsunoda was noted for failing to correctly serve his 10-second time penalty, and guess what? Gets a 10-second time penalty. He's screwed. He is very screwed. It wasn't his fault, but, And one thing I noted, Brundle mentioned that Max was Formula 1.5 as a compliment, but usually in internet circles when you talk about Formula 1.5, Formula 1.5 is basically like kind of the midfield to back markers that you think should deserve praise, even though they're not, your Verstappens, your Piastris, your Norrises. So he was trying to compliment him, but didn't realize that he basically said, oh yeah, Max is slow. He's a midfielder. Hamilton serves his penalty and then boxes to retire on lap 39, which makes it, yet again, a double Ferrari DNF. If you have a Ferrari fan you personally know, reach out to them and make sure they're okay. Same goes for if you like MotoGP, reach out to any Pecco fans. We're not doing well. Piastri on the softs on lap 39, he is not making it to the end. I was right. I am always right. Don't look at the fact that I expected Max to win both this and the sprint. Just pretend I'm always right. I know what's best. Tsunoda serves his second penalty properly this time. Verstappen leads on lap 51, but pits for softs on lap 54. And Crofty said papaya rules. That's all. Antonelli with overheating issues, and Russell with brake issues, but they both managed both of that. Also, another Brundle oopsie, as he called Russell a back marker when Russell was in P3 and Max was chasing him for the P3. And obviously, that's the end. Yay! The fastest lap was set by Alex Albon, and the positions were Norris, Antonelli, Verstappen, Russell, Piastri, Behrman, Lawson, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Albon, Ocon, Sainz, Alonso, Colapinto, Stroll, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Leclerc, and Bortoletto. And obviously, the driver of the day was a man who went from the pit lane to P3, Max Verstappen, who won by over 60%. It makes sense. I voted for him and he was the obvious option considering what a drive he had. He led a couple of laps and ended up on the podium. Albeit, I do find it kind of funny that nobody remembers the fact that Norris won, but everyone's like pit lane to P3, and Antonelli gets P2, which is his best ever race finish. It does open up a gap because Piastri was in 5th. Piastri has been suffering for the past who knows how long. But I don't think that there's any sabotage going on. Please don't speculate about sabotage. It's tacky, it's weird, and it's gross. I'm excited for Las Vegas. Do you have any predictions you want to share for Vegas? Please share them. I have no idea what's going to happen, and I'm kind of afraid to see what's going to happen. I obviously took a bunch of notes this week. I'm going to take notes next week. Maybe I'll be even more earlier with the upload. At least I wasn't as late as last weekend. I'll see you later. Bye.